The quality of education depends on the competence of its teachers. In response to falling standard, the federal government is moving to sanitize this profession by flushing out unqualified teachers. Today, we will be looking at the federal government moving to flush out unqualified teachers nationwide. And we are doing this alongside our esteemed guest, Professor Fawehinmi, a seasoned educationist. I am Temitayo Olumofe. Welcome to Guardian Talk. All right, welcome, Professor Abayomi Fawehinmi. Welcome to Guardian Talks. First of all, in a decisive move, the Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, has mandated the immediate removal of unqualified teachers from classrooms across the country. And this happened during a recent education stakeholders forum where Dr. Alausa stressed the importance of upholding professional standards, declaring that this is not a business as usual. How do you make sense of this statement from the Minister of Education?
I want to commend the Minister for Education for this direction is taking, and I'm endorsing and congratulating him and celebrating for the fact that we are taking decisive actions about the questions about having unqualified teachers teaching our children. By law and by the expectations of the United Nations and by the law of Nigeria, every Nigerian child has a right to quality education. And part of the ingredients of quality education is the quality of teaching, which includes teachers and the teaching equipment. So it's great we're going in this direction. It's also important to mention that when it's said those teachers will be removed, it then becomes problematic because of the fact that he knows himself they can't be removed. Because the reality of it is that if you check the arithmetic of the situation, the number of unqualified teachers that we have in Nigeria, we don't even know. We don't know. Because don't forget, we don't even know the number of schools we have in Nigeria. I mean, that's a fact. Nigeria had to rely on the external funded agency, ESPIN, to count the number of schools we have in Nigeria. Research done by people like TOO, ESPIN has shown that the numbers are being estimated over a couple of years. As we speak now, somebody may just start a school today and will not be registered and we will not have the data. So if we can't get all schools registered, how do you want to get all teachers in those schools registered?
Let's now move to, because you made mention of something that is very, very strong, a strong point that how do we even get to number the unqualified teachers across the country? And that's really a big question. That moves me to, how did we even get to the point where we are having to deal with unqualified teachers in our education system?
Okay, great questions. Thanks for asking. If we want to categorize our schools based on sectors, there are two categories of schools in Nigeria. You have the primary, the public schools and the private schools. By the public schools, I mean schools owned by the government. By the private schools, I mean schools owned by anything that is not government. So it includes private individual companies, non-profit, churches, mosques, and things like that. So if we do that categorization, there are unqualified teachers in public schools in Nigeria. So even the schools that Dr. Alausa said he wants to send teachers from, there are unqualified teachers there. And why is that the case? It's just because of the fact that the reality of it is that we keep sending unqualified teachers to our government school. A very good example that doesn't need any argument is the NYSC teacher scheme. A good number of public schools in Nigeria rely on NYSC to teach their students. When I was in school, I was in secondary schools in the 80s. I had teachers who are NYSC holders, who are NYSC, that studied all manner of courses that taught me. They were not qualified. And I attended a federal government college. That has not changed. There are people that have argued that they go to a school and they were the only graduates sent by NYSC to the school. We have heard reports of people that said they go to the school and they became the vice principal or they became whatever they were. So in government schools, we have unqualified teachers. So that's what should be easier for Dr. Alausa to do. Can he start from there? But he knows he can't start from there because those teachers belong to unions. And the Nigerian Union of Teachers will likely resist that. So let's talk about the private school. Now, why do we have cases of unqualified teachers in private schools? It's because of the range of private schools we have in Nigeria. So we have the high fee paying schools that target the elite that can afford to have qualified teachers. And then we have at the other extreme the schools that will are low fee paying, or some even no fee paying. And because they don't pay, so the students don't pay so much of tuition fee, the schools can afford the kind of teachers we are talking about. So as a result of that, they have to rely on unqualified teachers. So the question today asks is, so that's how we got there. It's a question of economics. If you want to have qualified teachers, qualified classroom, qualified everything for a private sector operator, then the school fees is going to increase and many people cannot afford it. You can't be the poverty capital of Nigeria and be selective when it comes to teachers you have in your classrooms, because we have schools in Nigeria today where the parents of the kids are so poor they can't pay per term. They pay per day. So children or people who are daily paid workers, the father comes from work and he has change. If he doesn't have money for tomorrow's class, the child does not go there. So we have classes, schools today, for example, that has to rely on those people. Again, there are structural reasons why that's the case. Another case in point, think about it. States, I won't mention the name of the state for obvious reasons. There are states, for example, that keep students in SS2 for too long. Because the state government, for example, pays the WAEC fees, and they want to only pay WAEC fees for those that are very, very brilliant. So anybody who doesn't get a particular mark does not leave SS2. So people repeat SS2 the first time, the second time, they just want to become teachers in this low fee paying school. And the reality of this is that in Nigeria, particularly in some states, those are the people meeting the needs of the educational needs of people at the bottom of the pyramid. So that's the challenge we are dealing with. So in the public sector, there are untrained and qualified teachers that are protected by unions or protected by institutions like NYSC.
See, I have to interject you here. Professor. I mean, if we say the NYSC is actually sending students or sending core members to schools, to government schools to go and teach, shouldn't there be a form of training for these core members before they are even being, sent to any of the government schools to go and teach? Because it's seeming like either you have a background in teaching or you don't have any background in teaching. You just go to this government school and go and teach, and maybe at the end of the day they get peanuts.
Yeah, I mean, you make a very great point. And interesting, this same minister some time ago had actually recommended that the NYC will become a 2-year program where people also get the certification to go and teach. If he has started doing that, then it becomes easy, but that has not been done. And he has also come back to say, that's not what I meant. So we can't, we really sometimes our public officials sometimes don't speak as if they recognize the enormity of the issue they are dealing with, right? They are, as of today, some schools rely on NYSC for teachers. So maybe an opportunity we have is that in the orientation camp, they start to have people that have some training, some quick, fast training. It's not effective, it's not thorough, but something to start with.
At least a process.
Yeah, and I think it's a recommendation that can happen during orientation. It can also happen along the time of the NYSC, where maybe, for example, there is CBTs that the corper can use, or some training guide for what every NYSC sent to a school. So if you are posted to a school, that could just be a portal that you can download how to deal with adolescents, how to understand learning pedagogy, how to write study notes. Something like that can be done to help at the end of the day. Because again, one part of the conversation we should not forget is that this fascination on qualified teachers essentially refers to not having TRCN certificates. So you could be a good teacher, but you don't have TRCN certificate, right? So and if you remember where he made those pronouncements, it was with reference to a regulatory body. So the question of, so because somebody does not have a TRCN certificate, but is a good teacher and is getting good results, should we chase him out? I don't think so. Let us also remember that we have had cases where some governors have tried to do this. Remember, it happened in Kwara State. You remember the one that brought the most noise was the one that happened in Kaduna State when Governor Rufai was governor. And he said he was going to sack them. Oh, there was a lot of noise. So we'll sack them. So sack them and all of that. What happened? The union came in. There were court cases. All of them are back in the system. So it's not a little thing to do. But the good thing is that we're agreeing is a problem. And then we can start to gradually, what I would expect the minister to have said is all unqualified teachers who are currently teaching to have a 1 or 2 year gap to write their exams.
Yeah.
That looks like a plan.
Right.
And then you can put a mandate and put a target for the TRCN to ensure that exams are written every month, not the number of times they do, so that they can capture everybody.
Okay.
I can actually recommend that the exam should become CPT, so I can be in Karen and Moda or in Onitsha or in Nnewi and write the exam, right? So we can quickly rev up that process, which is something that I think you should do.
Right.
Rather than just say, oh,
we're flushing them out, right? Okay, so let's look at the quarterly performance checks that he also made mention, because he said aside from flushing out, there's going to also be quarterly tech performance to improve the quality of teaching and learning in Nigeria. So how will the introduction of these quarterly performance checks improve the quality of teaching and learning in Nigeria classrooms?
You know, the minister is a medical doctor.
Okay.
So he's also new in education. Maybe I should also ask him whether he's also qualified to be a minister of education. I mean, because what he's saying is introducing is what we have already had. There's an inspectorate division of the Federal Ministry of Education. There is a inspectorate in all the state ministries of education. Their duty is to inspect and do that. You remember those days when you were in schools, you will hear people coming, they will say people are coming from ministry to come and inspect. That's what they come to do. They come to inspect teaching quality of teaching notes and all of that. But the federal ministry and state ministry dropped the ball. So when he said we will start, we're not starting. We had it. It died. So he should just resurrect it, and that's part of his role as a minister. So it's not a new thing. What will happen before was that. And I feel if we do that,
to be very effective. But again, the question is, where are we going to get those inspectors that will go to every school in Nigeria? Remember, and this is very important, we don't know all the schools we have in Nigeria. As we speak today, there are some people that will start schools today by just using a bedroom in their house, and the school has started. We had a case many years ago where a governor in Lagos State came and said Lagos State was going to, it was where it was sworn in that part of his goal is that all unregistered schools in Lagos will be closed down. And then there was some engagement that would say, hey, you don't even know the data. So when the governor got the data, in that time, there was no, the data came from a work that was done by DFID, DFIN project. And the data came out to say the number of unregistered schools in your state is more than the public schools in your state. And the number is increasing. As we speak today, I mean, go to areas in Lagos like Makoko, go to rural areas. There are people starting schools, or as you can imagine, there are churches, mosques starting schools in the evening. Now, this is vacation time. This is about time for vacation in Nigeria. Somebody is going to say, I'm going to start coaching for people. And then by the beginning or end of coaching, he says, you can come and start primary 1 or primary 2. There is what they call in Yoruba land, Jelosimi, which is primary education. Yes, Jelosimi, early child education. Many of those Jelosimi, they don't charge so much, and the parents will come and tell the person, why don't you let's start primary 1? And then the person starts primary 1, then let's start primary 2. And then the person just keeps doing it. And that's where we are because of the level of poverty. I mean, let's also remember, parents are not fools. Parents make irrational people. Why will a parent send his child to a school that has untrained teachers? It's because that's what they can afford. Now, let me tell you what will amuse you. That is what the minister should also be concerned about. I had to go do a walk in a village somewhere in the southwest of Nigeria. The number of schools in the unregistered private school was more than the number of students in the public school that was free. So these villagers, there is a public school in their community. It's free. They send their children, they don't send their children to that free public school. They send their children to a private school in this village where they pay fees. So I spoke to one of the women and the mothers, and I said, so why do you send your child? There is a free school there. She told me something that I've never forgotten. She said, sir, when a child goes to the public school that is free, the child can't speak English in good time. But when a child goes to the private school, the child will learn to speak English after one term. Do you know the funniest thing about private school? They have only one teacher for all the 6 classes.
Wow.
Yes. But that one teacher is effective enough that this mother said, when I send my child there, my child will learn to speak English after one term. So parents are making rational decisions. They are making rational decisions based on what they see in terms of learning outcomes. They are making rational in terms of what they can afford. And we need to accept that. I think what we should do is to set a target. Any teacher who is not registered, you have 2 years to become registered. We give that target to every teacher. We also give a target to the Teachers Registration Council, say, to meet this target, start to turn your exam to become CBT. Run the exams every month so that anybody can write it. If somebody fails in January, can write. I mean, just make it an IELTS, and then you will get more people registered. But again, please note, this emphasis on certificates as proof of registration itself is faulty.
You've taken my final question from my mouth, because I was going to ask what role should teacher training institutions and regulatory bodies play in ensuring that only qualified professionals enter and remain in our education system. So you're already tilting towards it. So you have the floor.
Yeah, I mean, the question we ask is that when you say what role do they have, don't forget, we can't stop. No, we can't. We have not been able to stop unregistered schools. So if you cannot stop the school, how do you want to stop the teacher in the school? I mean, the problem starts with, you can't even stop them, the school. You are talking about the teacher. So, but part of the role of the regulatory system and what I think they can do, and they have a very brilliant technocrat there, Mrs. Shiombo, that I believe will be able to make the difference, is to let the certification process be very important. Let me also mention that what research has found is that the pre-training is very important, but the post-training is more important in terms of quality and retention. So a child goes to a college of education, a student goes to a college of education, writes the exams, they becomes a qualified teacher. Data shows that is very good. But what data shows is that what happens when the person starts teaching for the first 2 years? What kind of training, in-service training does he get? What kind of mentoring does he get? What kind of supervision does he or she get in those first 2 years? Will determine the kind of teacher he will become, will determine the quality of teaching he will do, and finally will determine whether the person will be retained or not. So the question of training is a balanced approach that emphasizes pre-training before you enter a classroom, and then the hands-on mentoring and in-service training when you get to class. Wow. I think the minister should put his attention more on those trainings,
right,
getting certificates.
So he should pay attention to more trainings than flushing out the unqualified and giving the unqualified a period of time to make sure they get qualified. And if you're not, you can't be taken out of the system, isn't it?
He knows they can't flush them out. He's a medical doctor. Have you flushed out the doctors, the unqualified medical personnel in Nigeria? You always read in the newspapers a fake lawyer was caught somewhere in court, a fake doctor, a fake nurse, I mean, we have not flushed that in those life-threatening situations. He knows himself that he can't flush nobody out. They are protected by various laws, various unions. They'll go to labor. All the people that El-Rufai claimed they flushed out in Kaduna State, did they not go to court? Did they not win? Are they not back in service? We should stop using this. And you know the funniest thing about, I mean, because of my background in HR, if you hired me and you know I was not qualified, you hired me, so I'm a staff, you can't then suddenly say you are sacking me because I'm not qualified, because you knew before you hired me. However, as an employer, you can tell me I must become qualified in the next 2 years. But you can't say you sacked me because I am not qualified, because you hired me knowing I was not qualified. The principle of labor law that what you condone, you can't condemn. So you have an unqualified teacher who has been teaching in King's College or Badon Grammar School or Ondo Boys High School for the last 10 years. Then you now say you want to flush him away. He's going to go to court and he's going to win because you have condoned him for 10 years. The minister himself knows. So, well, let me say, I assume the minister should know.
Wow. Thank you so much, Professor Abayomi Fawehinmi. I mean, thank you for this interesting conversation we just had. And I really hope the minister and every other agency involved in this can look at the better and a bigger picture to actually tackling this, not just the unqualified teachers, but the schools too that are not registered properly. I mean, if we can deal with that of the schools, we can actually handle that of the unqualified teachers very well. Thank you for your intelligent submission. We really appreciate you, sir. All right.
All right. Thank you. Have a nice day. Yeah, bye.
Have a great day. Bye.
Improving education starts with empowering the right people to teach. Thank you so much, Professor Fawehinmi, for joining us today on Guardian Talks. I am Temitayo Olumofe. Thanks for watching.